Okay, what I'm going to look at here is I'm going to look at impairments. Now, what is an impairment? An impairment loss is an amount by which the carrying amount of the asset exceeds the recoverable amount. So when we have an impairment loss, we need to revalue the asset in its lower of its realisable value. So what we've got here is we've got some equipment which its original cost was $60,000. We've got some accumulated depreciation which gives it a carrying amount of $25,000, and our annual depreciation expense is $5,000 per year, and it's got a remaining life of 5 years, which would be 5 years times my $25,000. The value in use, the value to us is it's worth $16,500, but our net selling value is $18,000. So we've got a discrepancy here now. We can sell it for $18,000, but we're putting it on our books at $25,000. So this is what we call impairment. So now we need to look at which is the higher, which is our recoverable amount or our value in use, and obviously it's the recoverable amount. And my amount on my books is $25,000. It exceeds it by an amount of $7,000. So I need to make now an adjustment in my accounts to recognise the true value of my asset, which is what we call our net selling value. Now this is just a simple journal entry. So what I'm aiming to do is I've got an account called impairment loss. And of course this is my debits here and this is my credits here. Now this is a asset or an expense account. Okay, and of course because it's an expense account, my normal balance for an expense account is a debit. Now I've got another account here which is obviously my impairment loss, accrued impairment loss. Which is on my equipment, and that's $7,000. That's sort of similar to reducing my value like depreciation. So that's if I've got an asset that I'm valuing as a decrease. Now let's look at what we call revaluation, or a revaluation amount in relation to some equipment as well. So we've got a revaluation decrement. So a firm decides to record equipment at its fair value of $45,000. The equipment originally was purchased for $75,000, has accumulated depreciation of $25,000 and a book depreciation of $50,000. Now what do I need to do to rejournalise this? Okay, so it says journal entry to record the revaluation decrement. Okay, so now first thing, to close off the depreciation against the asset, I need to pass an entry which is my accumulated depreciation. Now what I'm basically doing is I'm reversing that $25,000 there. And I am going to decrease the value of the equipment by $25,000. So I've changed the value, that's the cost of my equipment. And that's to close off the depreciation against the asset. So I've pretty much taken care of that. And now what I want to do is I want to revalue this equipment. So I've gone from having a $75,000 value, I've reduced the value of the equipment by $25,000. So the book value is now $50,000. But I need to revalue to make sure it's $45,000. So I've got now what's called a revaluation expense. And that's $5,000. That's my debits, that's my credits. And what I'm doing is I'm once again reducing the value of the equipment by $5,000. Now, what we've got there is, I had an asset, original cost $75,000. Now I would have put that into my asset account. What I've done with this entry over here is I've reduced that by $25,000. Because that, remember this is normally a debit balance, and what I've got here is a credit. So that's a reduction, giving me 50,000, which matches up to that book value there. I now need to revalue to this amount here, and that's where my further 5,000 in equipment's come from. So once again, a credit of 5,000, which brings my asset value down to 45,000, and that's how we revalue. That's a revaluation. Now, let's have a look, let me just flip over, at a revaluation increment. So, using the previous example, my previous example is from my textbook, and it's in my textbook, it's on page number 471, 472. And what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to reverse the entry that was previously put through. Now, so I've got land that's worth 120,000, and assumed land is only worth 120,000 due to unforeseen contamination. Now, if you look at the question in the text, we are looking at the land was worth 300,000, and now we're changing the value of that. So let's have a look at the entries that we need to pass. So the journal entry to record the increment reversal is my revaluation reserve. So I have on the 30th of September revaluation reserve, and this is reserves, these are in equity. So I'm having a debit here of 50,000, meaning I'm reducing the value of my land by 50,000. And then I've got a revaluation expense of 30,000, which this drops the value of my land from 200,000 down to 180,000. You need to refer to the textbook for that. So that's how I do a reversal of my land.